All right, it's time to mix our track, and I'm going to give you just the basics, right? Audio professional audio engineers who went to school, work in major studios, and all of that. Uh, that is a skill that you build over years and years and years of practice. But I'm going to teach you how to get a decent mix, and I get a lot of compliments on this mixing style using this methodology easily, right? So you kind of understand the song as a whole, the components that are involved, and where you might need to cut frequencies. So I've created this graphic. I am not by any means a graphic designer, so this is looks like a jumbled mess, but I'll explain what it is, and hopefully you'll understand it. So um, this is the frequency range on the left here and on the right of what the human ear can hear, right? From 50 hertz basically to 20 kilohertz. Um, and then you'll notice like a little in the purple background, there's two words. Like for 50 hertz, there's solid and there's rumble. So the words on the left are descriptive words that you would use, in a positive way. Like you want your 808 to be solid, so want to maybe boost the 50 hertz range, right? But on the right, rumble. Let's say you were recording a vocal, you'd probably want to remove the rumble out of the low end, so you could hear that vocal. Make sure that vocal has a nice presence and it's not muddying up the lower end of the mix. So I have that for all the frequency ranges. So, like around 100 hertz, actually around 80s, where like about 80 hertz is where the punch of the kick is, right? I just put thump for that. Boomy, like if you're hearing that kind of low end and it's ringing out, that's maybe something you'd want to take out of your mix. Same thing here, 250 hertz, around that range. That's where your thick, warm sounds are, or it could be boxy if it's a vocal, for example. 500 hertz is the warm, and then muddy, right? Presence in the 1K range, or biting, depending on the instrument that you have. 3K definition versus harsh. Attack versus strident in the 5K range. Bright or sibilant. So actually, somewhere around 5K to, I've found at least, that 5K to 6K is where most of the S's live, and that's what they're talking about when they say sibilant. So if you put a de-esser on a vocal, it'll remove that kind of harsh sound, right? And I find that 10K is more like the airy. If you wanted to add air to your track, you would do that in the 10K area. But this is saying 20K and then brittle for up there. That's actually, I don't think my ears can hear that high, so I normally adjust that around the 10K mark. But at least this gives you a good framework. So the hertz aren't so confusing, right? Just kind of memorize these general ranges, and as you work more and more with mixing, you'll hear it. Okay, and then I put some pictures in here. So there's two aspects to your mix. Well, there's more than two, but there is your center left and right in any stereo mix, and then there is your frequency range. So for example, I have a picture of a little speaker here, so that represents like a 12-inch sub, right? So you would want to have that directly down the middle of your mix. Same with the kick. And if you remember, when we were putting our track together, we side chained those two instruments together, because you can see there's some overlap of the kick drum and the bass. That's because they're fighting for that frequency space, and that's why we side chain it. So when the kick hits, that 808 pulls back, right? But they're both right down the middle. Keyboards, that includes like warm synths, organs, Rhodes, those type of chordal instruments like that, even harps in some cases if you're playing the low end of a harp. Those kind of live towards the middle and in that 250 to 1K range. Then we have like guitars kind of left and right of that, the presence, so they'd be kind of left and right of the singer. That includes like plucks, any instrument that might be like percussive, like mallets, that type of thing, kind of left and right there. Especially high strings like violins. I would pan left and right. I put I put a picture of a lily pad in here because there was no good graphic for pads. A pad is like a soft synth sound that's in the higher range. Those live pretty far left and right, and the reason that they're panned so far left and right is because this right here, this person singing, is the most important part of your song. The lyrics are the most important. The melodies that are sung, obviously, that you want that to be out front and center and the most predominant part of your song, and you want to leave room in your mix so that if somebody writes to it, when they sing to it, it's not a difficult mixing challenge to get the vocals heard. And if you are producing for yourself and you're an artist, which I think a lot of people taking this course are, you're just going to save yourself a lot of time and headache if you mix your tracks this way. But yeah, right in the center from the 500 hertz to 5K range, that's where we want that vocal, and we want to push everything else out of the way for that. These little, people partying on the left and right, think of those as background vocals, so they normally live a little bit higher and panned left and right. And normally at like 50 to 70% when you pan it. We'll go over that in mixing later. Then the snare drum lives in the middle as well. It normally doesn't interfere with the vocal that much because it's so percussive. And then the hi-hat above that, down the center. I normally pan my hi-hat. Either I pan it a little to the right or left, or I do I use a tool called Panomatic, I think it's called, in FL Studio, where you can set it to kind of travel left and right. I don't know, it's a nice effect I like to do. And that's another thing, like, these aren't set rules that you must follow, by the letter, right? This is a great place to start, and then you can start using your creativity. But the most important part is that you leave room for this main singer and for those background vocals as well. So this is kind of the thought process, the methodology behind mixing your track so you're leaving room for the vocals. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, you can always ask in the group. But watch this first, and then we're going to hop right into mixing this particular track, and I'm going to show you the quick way to do it. And one other thing that I do want to add is when you are creating your track, you can save a lot of time of mixing by just choosing the right instruments. A lot of it's just sound selection, and ask yourself, are the instruments fighting with each other for space as they are, right? If that's the case, you may want to, you may just want to pan them left and right so you can hear them both clearly, or you might want to choose another sound that lives in another frequency area. Okay, I hope that's made sense. Let's move on let's talk about the components of a track. Hey, what's going on? I hope you've enjoyed this training. This training is just part of a larger course, so if you want to take the whole course, just go to this playlist right here. Also, if you subscribe to my channel, you're going to get a lot of information on how to get your music into TV and film. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, all of those things. Let's go.